Recording is on.
Welcome to DXgov governance discussion for 1500 UTC on November 2nd, 2022. We will first look at the agenda here. So as always, we'll start with a proposal roundup. I'm going to put that back up here. So we have Mainnet and Gnosis Chain to go over a bunch of different proposals. There's a couple different proposals in there, I think, that will require some additional discussion and maybe not just sitting on them. So we'll chat through that there. And then, we have another big point of discussing in terms of the restructuring and refocus. Phase 2 accountability, access, and anatomy structure as opposed from Keenan that I think was last Thursday. And then we had a discussion on Friday. And so some polls in there. So following up from that there. But let's start with the proposal roundup. And starting with Mainnet, we have D Labs contributor bonus. So this is off of a discussion on, it's been in the forum, I think one of the most active discussions lately on the exploit disclosure from DXgov governance. And so this is a request for 150K USDC as a compensation for the disclosure on this feature. So Dave, maybe you can kind of give the synopsis of what other people may have a little bit of understanding of what the problem, of what the vulnerability was, but kind of where does this proposal fit into that?
Sure. So, I mean, this is, a brief overview about the vulnerability is that essentially the DAO stack contributor scheme, which is a global scheme used among all the DAO stack DAOs and which DXDAO uses for any fund transfers, had a periods variable, which essentially was simply a multiplier. And I guess the main issue is that this was not reflected in either of the UIs. So any proposal could have a hidden multiplier. It was actually like a unsigned integer with 256 bits, which means like you can set like up to over a trillion multipliers. So even if you request like one DAI, you could set a multiplier. Of course, my doorbell has to ring right now, of up to 1 million. And it would actually like pay out at that multiple of both REP, any ERC20 token you request, or Ether. And I guess to avoid this, we've both added some monitoring to DXgov. So if you actually look, I submitted one proposal which had like multiple periods back in June when I actually found out about it. It'll actually have a little warning sign. I don't know if you'll find it now live on the call. And then if you click into it, there'll actually be like a sign. I think it's like D Labs expenses or something it was called. But yeah, anyway, and then there was some discussion in the forum around, paying out a bounty, etc. We did like a DXD snapshot, a poll in the forum, and I guess this is like a proposal to see whether it'll pass with that amount that was voted on. Let's see if we find the.
What was a good search besides D Labs?
I think expenses. I think, well, actually.
I should do also expired in queue.
Is it maybe it's actually not pushed to develop? I know we're on develop. Sorry, it should do.
Yeah. Let me just search your address. So that's the current fix that's in now. And we'll actually get to it in a second.
And then the second one is currently we have like we're going to talk about it in a bit, right? But it's like redeploying the contribution reward schemes with the different. With actually just validating that periods are set to 1.
Yeah, I can't find it now.
Yeah, well, we can find it later.
And there was, as I said, like a pretty active discussion in the forum. I think this is obviously a unique situation. I think all vulnerabilities end up being unique situations, but I think here, given I think 2 circumstances, made it even more unique and kind of a discussion on how exactly to resolve it. First is that we didn't have an established bug bounty program for the Treasury or for the DXDAO core contracts. We have hats that we've used for some of the other contracts, but there wasn't something that was set up for this specific one. And then secondly, the fact that Dave was, as a full-time contributor, was like already looking at the contracts and was kind of monitoring, whereas like a lot of bug bounties are out there in order to attract eyes and appeal to them. there. So there was a lot of discussion, and I think Dave said there was also, let's find the snapshot. There's the other, there's a snapshot in the forum here, and then the DXD temp check one here on snapshot. And so that's where I think the 150 number was landed at. Any thoughts from anyone else kind of on this discussion on the process, I guess, on the proposal? So it's boosted now or another 6 hours. So there was a previous proposal that had kind of gone back and forth with some gen boosting previously. That's ultimately downstaked now. And then this one has been in the pre-boosted state for 18 hours. I mean, it's been staked on, and for another 6 hours, anyone could come in and downstake this proposal. But once that becomes staked, then there will be 7 days to vote on that. Cool.
Dave, the test one you did, was that on Mainnet or is that Gnosis Chain?
It's on Mainnet. I'm actually,
The fact that it's not showing up is not good.
yeah. I was just looking as well on my.
I don't see it. So that means you can still attack DXgov, basically.
No. I don't think so. I think maybe this exact proposal. It could be that the IPFS text is corrupted or something. That's why. But if you was to submit a new proposal which has multiple periods, it would be flagged as a warning. And I mean, maybe Augusto or Ross can specify more. But like that's pushed to. It's in develop on GitHub, and I believe it's also pushed to production, right?
Yeah. Because I think Dave was saying some of the IPFS, if you get like the title messed up a little bit, it might not be showing up there. But I think this.
I'm looking at like all proposals on Mainnet, and does that mean it's just like, oh, because it's showing up as IPFS hash?
I think actually there's an ordering. I don't know.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
this
there
is
it is.
it here.
Because it's expired in queue, like our proposals are not ordered by time, but by status and then time. So this one is like all the way at the bottom.
And here, Dave, because you submitted it from bot.dlabs.
Oh yeah, because I had to build it like on the command line interface. I couldn't use my hardware wallet.
Right, because you couldn't submit this actually through Alchemy or through any of those. And so, yeah, this is the. And so I wonder actually if you. Yeah, so this is it right there. If you search here, you see how this warning sign comes up for these two proposals.
Yeah, and if you look at the proposal that creates it, you can also see the periods in the actual transaction method scan. So this one I think was submitted with 5 periods.
Oh yeah, this is a good point. Yeah, so this is actually it's like a pretty easy way to check this. So this is, let's do Dave's proposal right here. This is what it looks like when it's been. You go down here, you go to decode input data, so avatar, that's DXgov, description hash, that's the IPFS hash, and then rewards. So this is 150 plus 6 zeros for USDC. And then right here is how many times it can be reward. I think this is like the number of periods or whatever. So this is what looks like in a normal proposal. And this is the potential bad proposal that was kind of flagged. If you look at it here, decode input data. Yeah, and you can see here a small, I think this is DAI or rep award, but you can mint it 5 times. Yeah, and then I guess Dave. I mean,
I'm looking at the Mainnet. I'm searching D Labs, like how it was written on that proposal. But how did you actually find that? I don't see why I can't. If I'm looking at all the proposals, why can't I find it?
I think you maybe like expired in queue is not included in search. Like just if you scroll down for like forever.
Yeah, scroll to the bottom. It's not there.
Yeah, but look, all of these are execution succeeded.
Yeah, and the further down you go, then you get like expiring queues. Like, yeah, here we go. So it'll be somewhere here.
It's not there.
I mean, that's more a question for Augusto or Ross, not for me, to be honest.
Well, the problem is I actually don't think this is in chronological order.
Yeah.
Down here.
But it's still, it's just not. It's also just not there. It doesn't matter what order. I don't see it showing anywhere. Why is that?
I mean, it's showing on Chris's, so maybe it's something to like.
Well, that was me
upload
searching
and,
for it.
like, you know.
Yeah.
Is Augusto
So,
or Ross have any comments on this?
No, if I can see your screen and I don't know what you are looking for, we don't know how many total proposals and active proposals you have active. I cannot tell you what's happening. So,
I think just to close a loop on this in terms of what was the
yeah, Chris, I want to talk. What happened with the 200K?
It was downstaked.
So it was downstaked. That's it. So that's it. We are not going to vote on that.
Well, I mean, there's a different proposal for D Labs that pays out 150K that is regarding the same actions, rewarding the same actions as the other proposal. So I'm kind of presuming that D Labs substituted out that proposal for this proposal.
Okay, but what happens if this? Okay, to me it's like, I mean, we should be able to vote on the 200K USD and go from a higher amount to lower amount.
I mean, Augusto, I think
for me, it is.
If you feel this way, you can stake Jen on that proposal, and we can have that. Like, that's how the system works.
Yeah.
So this one, the other one did get like a couple back and forth on this, right? So this is someone staked, or Dave staked, D-Lab staked yes, and then someone staked no, then D-Lab staked yes, and then someone staked no, and then the other proposal was submitted. So.
Yeah, so this raises a topic of like, and we haven't had many scenarios where DXDAO governance can get stalled. It doesn't get shut down, but it can get stalled by holographic consensus with a token that is not worth very much money and is not liquid. And actually, yeah, it's hard to even tell who holds this Gen token that is the holographic element of our system. So as you can see, like, if people want to, they can clearly shut down the governance systems of DXDAO, or at least delay them, right? You can keep making new proposals, but people can keep staking and down staking and up staking on proposals. That's why reaching consensus before doing proposals, so that, yeah, probably there is no adverse staker, is often part of a key part of the governance. But if this was DXD token instead of Gen, would it like change the thing? And so this raises some questions about holographic consensus in general, and some of the dangers or risks of it. But that's something we should also probably talk about and factor into the future governance systems of DXDAO.
Yeah, 1.5 is going to use DXE, and it will be a stronger and safer staking because you won't be able to attack it in this way. Because, this is not an attack, but is mainly like, taking an advantage of a very weak token that we are using for staking. So yeah, I'm going to go and stake on this because this is. I think we should have the right to vote here and to see, to be able to make a decision. Anyway, it's very weird because this is a problem that we have right now on our governance, and to me it is, I don't know, it is kind of serious. Like, one individual can just
I mean,
with
Augusto,
low
like,
amount of
again,
money.
you could stake on this gen. There's
Yeah.
like this the same rules that DAO Stack holographic consensus had from the beginning. I wish there was more of a financial incentive to do that, but I would honestly implore all DXDAO stakeholders to like get gen. Like you should
Yeah.
have gen in order to like push things through. That's the whole way the system has worked kind of from the beginning. I definitely prefer DXD, but I don't really see this as any different than just like normal how holographic consensus should work. It's like a part of that consensus process. And Sky, like I definitely don't think you should be forming consensus only off chain before like moving on chain for that. Like literally, it's in the name, holographic consensus. It's part of the consensus process.
The other comment to make that I just wanted to bring up is that if people are worried about like the DAO being blocked by this gen issue, then another way to stop that happening, or the risk of that happening so much, is the discussion around the DXD guild giving that like a decent chunk of rep, because then obviously if you have more than 51% of rep voting for something, then it doesn't matter what gen is staked upwards, downwards, whatever. So that could be a way to protect blocking of all sort of proposals.
Yeah, I know it is. I know it is part of the game, and I respect it. But yeah, I think it is will be good to acknowledge like how weak we are right now on the holographic consensus cast. I mean, it's something that is quite cool. It's very cool, and it's great to have. But if you have a weak token for the holographic consensus, these things can happen. So, yeah, I'm going to buy gen and stake.
This could have happened before too. I'm not gonna say something like bad like this will happen. I'm just saying if someone from DAO Stack with a bunch of gen, because I checked the wallets and some of them are like old DAO Stack people. If some of them just want to mess around, they could have just done this with 1 million gen, right? And what will, like, the only way we could do something about it is voting with 51%. But yeah, it is a little bit worrying because DAO Stack is I don't know if they are like if they're active or not, but if someone is willing to buy 1 million gen off the market from one of the old DAO Stack people, that's pretty worrisome, right? Especially if you actually have a division between the DAO. We do see some patterns of how people are voting and why this is happening. I'm not gonna speculate, but just saying there is. Yeah, I'm not worried, but just we should know this risk is happening. I know it's part of the game, but I'm not sure if we prepared for like DAO Stack to go under and gen to be this week.
The other question is if we already had DXD instead of gen, how would the situation be different? Like, would it be better necessarily? Would it just be?
I don't think this situation would have played out any differently if it was DXD versus gen. I think because you have the financial compensation like angle there, even with gen at its very low level. I agree that there was like concerns about putting these big obstacles up in terms of governance, but like I don't think that was the case here, because I think if you had DXD, the exact same situation would have played out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, hi guys. I was gonna say that I caught up with Adam, who was at DAO Stack. Just today, I just randomly saw him, and yeah, just like one of the things that he said about this whole thing is that they knew that this exists. They knew that the contracts are not fully reflected in the front end, and it can happen for various reasons. And then back he was like, when I maintained it. He said, there's like many different like bots and like ways to search for any proposals that are active in order to mitigate like any of these risks. So yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess Dave, like the fault is not with the contracts themselves, right? It's the fault is like with, the UI presenting the contracts.
Yeah. So one of the things I wrote in the forum thread about this, which we don't like to like look back and learn, which is my questions were related to that. But if we made a new system, we made a whole new front end, and we actually, when you make a front end, you make a front end based on a back end. I'm wondering, I would like to know, I'm not blaming anyone, but like, how can you make a whole new front end? Do we just copy the DAO stack front end? Like, or do we look at the number of variables in the back end? And then do you say, okay, there's 10 variables. Let's make a front end that has the same 10 variables.
It's not that simple. It's just,
well, it's in this case, it's kind of simple. There's more variables, and not all the variables are showing in the front end. But like, if we never discovered that because DAO stack didn't do that, that's one thing. But we actually built an entire new front end, but we never matched up the number of variables. How does that slip through the cracks?
the short answer is that there is an infinite number of variables. Like, you cannot account for everything. No, but that's true.
In the back end, there's literally like functions that you can look at a contract, and there's number of functions and there's variables.
Yeah, but I mean, there's literally an infinite number of things.
Combinations, I guess, yeah, but
combinations. You cannot write a front end that will, have all of these cases in mind. You just can't. And so, like, there are always trade-offs in these things. And so, like, what DAO stack did, like the trade-off that this is from the conversation with Adam. What DAO stack did is that they just created like many different like reporting mechanisms every time the contract is interacted with, which is like the ultimate truth, right? You wouldn't be able to see like what's the whole data that people have interacted with the contract. You wouldn't be able to translate that into UI, but you will see that someone has interacted and tried to do something. And then that would be mapped out and monitored very heavily. I think like I remember back in the day, Nico and myself and a few others, like I don't know if it's live. Yeah, it's not live. But there was like a bot that basically does that. And just like views all these proposals, all the interactions with sort of the contract. So yeah.
That I promise is actually a good transition to the next part, which is actually a continuation of this discussion with another proposal on Mainnet that is boosted right now. And so we talk about the front end element to this in terms of tracking, and that's kind of implemented now. And again, any Mainnet proposal that is submitted, you can check on Etherscan how many periods are there now outside of just the DXgov interface. But actual fix at the smart contract level is to replace the contributor reward scheme with a different one that doesn't allow for the multiple periods to be redeemed. And so that's a proposal that was submitted by Augusto. It was discussed last week on the developer call, and then also a little bit here and submitted there. And I just wanted it's actually confusing how it goes through all the different contracts to be able to like verify it here. So the first thing we want to do here is, we want to open the DX controller contract. Let me close some of these other things. And then we want to input the current, we want to get scheme parameters. And to do this, we need the scheme address and the avatar address. So the scheme address, this is for the current contribution reward. Because what we want to do is make sure that the current contribution reward is the same as the new one, just with this like small thing change. So in the current contribution reward, and it actually ends up being the same hash because all of these configurations are the same. So we want to make sure that all of these things right here are the exact same. And so this is for the current contribution reward. So to do that, we're going to put the scheme address here. And then we get the avatar address here. And then this is where we get this 0x60A149. And then we actually need to get the hash of this in order to be able to get this back. And so we actually need to go and get this on the contribution reward scheme. I know this is, if we take the parameters that we got here, if we take that and input it on the contribution reward scheme, we can see that this is the one that we all use here because we see all these great ENS names here. So it's a good way of kind of checking with that there. And then once we get this, we're taking, and then right here, you'll see this is the same as what we have here for the parameters hash. And then we actually want to check on, this is the Genesis protocol. So this is where we actually want to check on the parameters of this. And to do that, we've got the parameters hash. Remember that they said this is a global scheme. So these parameters can be used, actually, this contribution reward scheme can be used by anyone. And then we see right here, this is the same things that we have here, just in a little bit more confusing way to read. So this is the old contribution reward scheme. And then we want to look at the new contribution reward scheme and make sure that it has these same parameters. And so right here, this is the proposal that registered this contribution reward scheme using 0x990C here. So you can see that here, register this scheme. And then when we go in and look at this scheme, the second transaction here is a set parameters transaction. And so in the set parameters transaction here, you can see that the parameters that were set are, they can see that they're the same ones as the previous ones. We can actually double check that again here by looking at Genesis protocol and then, inputting this here. And we get the same here as we got here. So that's how we confirm that this is the same parameters there, just with that small adjustment. And you notice it actually is still the same hash to be able to do that, because the hash is actually of these parameters that here, not over the redeemability part. So this is a big change. Anytime you're changing any scheme is definitely important. So it actually has a 48-hour boost time. And then after that, it has 14 days until it is it can be up for vote. So this is just the beginning of being able to see it. And then there is also a separate proposal on Gnosis Chain to make the same change there. It's much more difficult to verify that on Gnosis Chain because the Genesis protocol on Gnosis Chain is not verified. So you can't do that there. But Augusto kind of walked through it, I think in the dev call and then also yesterday. But again, it's the exact same kind of changes there, just on Gnosis Chain. Yeah, Augusto.
We had a call yesterday. Chris remarked that the steps to verify that everything work and the new registration on the scheme were not very well detailed, but this was the best that I could do. And the important thing to know is that we are registering a contribution reward with the same parameters, with the same voting parameters that we have on the controller and the same permissions. So once this happens, the only way to use this contribution reward is by creating a proposal and executing a proposal. So I think the next step, once the schemes are registered, we should create a proposal to test that the transfer is working and test that you cannot submit a proposal with more than one period. We already have tests for this on the GitHub repository, but again, we are going to try to attack it on mainnet, and it should fail.
Cool. Anything else on this? This is actually might be it for the exploit disclosure discussion. And just to know that there is an update, real-time updates here on the governance call, that now there are two pre-boosted proposals in the contributor reward scheme. Both are, or one is D Labs White Hat reward, and the other is D Labs contributor bonus. I think they are, the text is basically the same. The difference being one is 200K USDC and the other is for 150K USDC. Yeah, I mean, are there any risk of installing a new scheme? I think yes, that's why we're kind of going over it here. But I don't think that this is necessarily like a new scheme because it doesn't have any new privileges and it's the exact same as the other one except for that small thing. And that was like kind of going through the hash of the permissions because that is kind of like what verifies that this is the same permissions as the previous one. And this is actually really helpful on like DXgov. When you're looking at that, like you can see what the permissions of the schemes are, right? And so the contribution reward can't make a generic call. That's why we have the multi-call scheme. It can't upgrade the controller. Very, very important. It can't change global constraints and it can't register schemes. But yeah, you can see the different ones. Yeah, the multi-call 3 can make multi-call. And then we'll have the scheme registrar down here, can register schemes, can do all of these things. And this is also one of the, you know, not just having new schemes, but also like old schemes, right? So anytime you have a scheme that's like, you know, both a potential attack vector, but like maybe that scheme isn't showing up in DXgov or kind of isn't being tracked or something. So that's why a couple months ago we did, or maybe it was in the spring, because we did a bunch of deregistering of some schemes that we don't use. And then I think this is probably cue for Ross to maybe say all of this scheme talk will change in governance 1.5 because it's a kind of different structure. Maybe a new name. I know it's my response to everything. Schemes. Yeah, so let's switch over to Gnosis Chain here. And yeah, as I said before, there's the register scheme proposal that is boosted to, and that's the same one that's on Mainnet there. And then we have several different contributor proposals. We have Dino. I should have probably learned how to pronounce your last name when we were in Colombia, but Dino working on the DXgov team, their proposal there that's got another 21 hours until it passes there. We have Nathan end of period contributor proposal. Very worth the read in terms of Nathan. This is sadly his last contributor proposal there. So definitely worth a read and maybe worth a vote if you kind of feel so and wishing Nathan the best on things going forward. And then we have, Leonardo contributor proposal here, who's been doing some great work on Swapper here, and also was in Colombia at the retreat here. I think we have 3 different cow swap orders, and actually 2 right now. So those have kind of been going on there and kind of executing, I think, pretty well with a lot less overhead. And if you recall, last week we had basically gotten out all of the excess DXD and WETH out of the GP relayer and working on like a little accounting post to update on where the DXD buyback kind of is there. But it's been nice having cow swap because it really does lower the requirements on DXgov, on running a solver, a bunch of things there. And then, yeah, we have a die payout for Lucy Foss. This is actually one that was for mostly April, but done a lot of the both Swapper stuff and then also Carrot here. And then we have, a couple different contributor proposals. We have Melanie's contributor proposal. We have Ross has, is it 3 proposals here? Yeah. One, there's the retrospective one in the past, there's one going forward, and then that is separate from the actual payment proposal that is to DevX, but that is live there. And then, as I said before, there is a new contribution reward scheme that is being registered here. It's the same thing as the last one, but because the DX controller contract is not verified, that is, we can't really do that on Gnosis Chain. And then, we have, there's, again, maybe we can talk, maybe Ross, you can talk a little bit about this. This is a mint small amount of test rep for DXD Guild. So this was, I guess, is now boosted. It can now be moved to that. But I guess, what is this the start of?
Yeah, so the proposal kind of goes through the steps of this. We had a forum post discussing a DXD Guild as like a short-term solution to not having governance 2.0 immediately, but still wanting to give DXD holders a meaningful voice in governance. And so now we have guilds. We can make a DXD guild, which is able to vote in just normal DXDAO governance. The phase 1 of the restructuring also highlighted this as one of the actions, so it's kind of following up on that. The idea is to mint 4% to the DXD Guild as an initial amount. Obviously, more can be minted afterwards as a separate conversation. But this is just a test amount. It's, I think, 100 rep, just to make sure we can actually vote with it before we start putting a larger amount in there. So if you hover over it, you can see the exact amount in percentage, but it's probably like 0.05. 0.05 even. Also there'll be some more stuff coming on. It's not verified. This is something we need to do as well. Is verifying it on. Gnosis Scan. Gnosis Scan is irritating. But there'll also be some more stuff coming around Project Levy going into public beta this week. We're just getting the communication sorted on that, but everything's going pretty smoothly, having guilds and production networks.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. And exciting stuff, obviously, for DXD Guild participating directly in governance. And then there's even, something in terms of the snapshots. Is there a way to have some of those there? Cool. And then there are, and then I guess, again, Ross, maybe just briefly, this is the second of third payment for the governance 1.5 contracts to Omega team. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We got the preliminary report back from them just before DevCon. So this is just payments. The original proposal was 10K, and then in this midway point, we another 10K, and then the final payments once we have the full audit back. Obviously, you can go and read the proposals if you want more background on all of this, or to even read the agreement that we did with Omega. Omega's also done audits for us in the past. Thanks everything. I had a very busy day making proposals yesterday. I think I did like 5. Might be a new record for me.
Yeah.
Maybe not for you. And
all that, Jen. Oh no, Melanie.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not my Jen.
Yeah. One of my worst trades ever was buying like 1 ETH worth of Gen in like September 2020, right when I was like involved in DXDAO governance. I was like, well, I need a lot of Gen. So that's those proposals. And then there are actually 2 different proposals in a quiet ending period here. One is a cow swap order that is not that, and the other is a ZET proposal to pay out for July, August, September. This has seen a lot of activity. There have been 2 downvotes, but it is now has 12.84% that is voted for. I don't know if ZET or any of the people that voted down, or I guess for, had anything that they wanted to add to this, or any discussion on this proposal.
I mean, I guess I could give some background why John wanted some clarification on some details for my period. I felt that I didn't need to do some clarification, and basically told John to leave me alone. And he said he will not vote for my proposal, and here we go. He did vote down my proposal, and if I remember correctly, in a couple of hours before the proposal should have gone through or something like that, another downvote came in I'm guessing it's Geronimo. I'm not 100% sure, but that means this proposal would take another day to pass. Yeah, that's all.
And something that I noticed that was a little surprising in terms of how things operate. So this is the quiet ending period, right? So typically, like, that's in there to say if the vote changes within a day from, say, one side to the other, it starts the clock and says it's got 48 hours more to vote for this vote to complete. So in this case, the death proposal was initially voted upon, I think, by it was for like 3 people, and it was slated to pass. And then within 2 days after it was slated to pass, votes came that switched it from slated to pass to it's going to fail. So then that restarted the 48-hour clock. But then you had votes coming in for, and there were several votes that came in this morning for. And so that has now switched the proposal to it will now pass. But interestingly, it did not actually reset the quiet ending period. And so this quiet ending period is now at 1 day away from passing, even though it's full, instead of it kind of resetting to 2, which is, I guess, how I thought it maybe worked. But here, I think maybe because it went yes, no, and then back to yes, there isn't a quiet period for that second one. But Augusto, you have some insight here.
Hola, sí. Yeah, we were talking about that just before the governance call, and I went and I looked at the smart contracts, and I think this is something that we never. This was a case that we didn't take it in account when we were doing the logic and algorithmic for the finish time and how that is calculated. And I think it already restarted, and the finish time will be after the boost time, where you can see there on the proposal, 2 days after that. So the finish time you see there, it is 2 days after the first change of the quiet ending period happened. There is 2 days after that, and it should be updated, and it should be 2 days after the boosted time.
So is it just in the front end that it hasn't reset to 2?
Yeah, I think what is going to happen is that when it finishes, we won't be able to make it finish. Like it should revert, and you should be able to execute it, to claim it, 2 days after the boost time. So this is something that, this is a bug that we have in the front end. But the boost time that you see there is going to you're going to be able to execute it successfully once it ends 2 days after the boost time.
Cool.
I think it's 2 days on that scheme. Yes.
Cool. Any other thoughts on this or any of the proposals that are live? We also have the Philip proposal that is, I think, now pre-boosted right now. I don't know if I mentioned that, but yeah, any other thoughts on the Gnosis Chain proposals? Cool. And then as a suggestion from Sky, I think we're going to take the opportunity to just quickly check on the Arbitrum base, which has no active proposals, but is good to check on here where there's no one's there. So no proposals here. Cool. Okay. Let's move on to discussion items. The big one we have, I guess, is probably we can take some time here, is on phase 2 accountability, access, anatomy, and structure. So Keenan has been leading in this effort, put forth the posts and the polls. So Keenan, do you want to kick things off here?
Yeah. Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes. You sound wonderful. It's great to hear your voice.
I hope I sound wonderful because I feel awful. Yeah, I'm coming down with some kind of illness. Did a COVID test, not COVID, thankfully, but don't really know what it is. Super weak, kind of stomach illness feeling. But on the topic of this, I'm probably not going to speak much. I'm getting the ASMR things I always get when I'm sick in the chat. I'm probably not going to speak much to this, but I did want to point the discussion back to phase 2. I know there's a whole lot going on in the forum right now, and it's hard to keep focus on any individual thing. But I think it's important that we kind of focus on this, even if just for the day. We've already pushed the kind of Sigma proposal date back a little bit, and there's still a couple of kind of public questions. For those of you that haven't seen it yet, I'll put it in the chat here. Excuse me. Yeah, so I think everything is feeling pretty good. There's some questions as we had in phase 1, alongside kind of the more not respected, but kind of expected to be going this way points. But there is, I guess, 2 that are still a little bit of question marks with some questions that need to be answered. And Chris, I was hoping you could maybe lead the discussion about the accountability councils and kind of take that discussion to where it might need to go. And then after that, maybe we can chat a bit about kind of the vision / True North discussion.
Yeah, do you want me to do that now?
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Yeah, give you. Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of things going on here, and I think it was like really great. I guess I don't register my DAO talk on the one that I'm showing here, so we can't see the results of these. Maybe I should share it different. Then you see what I voted for. Hold on. No, not that one. This one. Okay. Yeah, but I think there were a bunch of things in here, and like as I presented on the at the retreat, and have talked a little bit, there's kind of like 3 different things I had seen as like pillars for how we can kind of come to these better coordination and governance decisions. That's a 6-month budgetary cycle for all squads, these squad accountability councils or advisory councils, and then a priorities board. And so just a way that we're like kind of publicly coordinating and discussing what are the current DXgov priorities. And so there's some different polls in here. I think the overwhelming majority of them are pretty, I guess you can see here the budgetary cycle, 80% for, 20% against. You can see the squad accountability councils are clearly the closest vote. And I think there was maybe just a vote recently because I saw it was 50-50 when I started the call here. And so I think this was like kind of an idea of having this really like layer between execution and governance. So we have like squads that are going to be taking on all this responsibility, are going to be presenting these things to the community for governance to consider and to be able to vote on. But seeing if there can kind of be some group or individuals that is there to like help facilitate that process. The 2 things that I thought about as a way that they can facilitate that are, 1, having some like report card that they do on squad performance at the end, and then maybe even that idea of like revocability of a squad budget at some point, like basically like a big red button that they could press there. I think in terms of what the councils like could be and should be, I do agree that it's kind of like a long-term thing we can try to implement, and it is something that I think goes side by side with the budgetary process, right? The budgetary process like will kind of go forward as we have good support on that, and that will invite different governance participation and also invite those stakeholders to be able to like give some input on this process. And whereas the council would be just like a more specialized group that's doing that themselves, so I kind of see it fitting into that. And so like, we'll see how I guess Keenan is kind of leading how the proposal will end up being written here. But I think this is something that we should like move forward to going like long-term, is like, how can we have just another group that is like providing some insight and analysis that is like separate from the squad itself. But I think there's like a lot to figure out in terms of how we implement that. So something along the lines of the, like, if it would be like exploring squad council ideas, I think that would be fine, as opposed to, I think, like the squad budgetary cycle. Like, I think that's something we need to implement by the end of the year and get that all kind of upset and running. Whereas like maybe with the accountability councils, the advisory councils, we can kind of see as a way of pushing that forward over like the coming months, because it will take a long time to get people involved and kind of figure out what that structure is like. And I think having the squad budgetary cycle structure first will actually make it easier to put the squad councils ones on there. But yeah, I think long term, this is still something that I think we should be building to, even if we are taking our time.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Particularly interested in if anybody that has a strong no vote would like to speak up and share their thoughts, just kind of to help guide the signal proposal over the coming days here. Yeah, flesh out or discuss more, I think, is the common point that I've heard personally. Sorry if my cat's yelling in the background. I'm a mess, man. If not, then I think, as Chris kind of said, exploring that step as some kind of strong on-chain signal makes a lot of sense for phase 3. Yeah, I guess the other thing is to kind of chat about here is the vision, and there's been some thoughts on that. Not sure if I'm good to really talk much here, but I know Venki had some kind of vocal pushback against it, and I think maybe if there is a vocal pushback against the idea of cementing a vision before kind of understanding the vision statement, which I personally do not see as a problem, instead as a positive. But if that is the case, we can instead kind of indicate a delegation of, should DXDAO explore this kind of package of vision and whatnot. But yeah, open stage to anyone who has any pushback or ideas or thoughts on kind of the vision idea, enabling community freedom. Does it resonate with you? Does it not resonate with you? It would be good to hear any final thoughts to help kind of put together that signal proposal. And sorry, not to implicate pushback, Venki, just try to vocalize that you had some questions about it. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think I spoke already the BizDev call. The only concern for me is what is the value that we will deliver if we achieve this vision? If you're able to answer this, and then if you're able to answer this in unison, like everybody in the DAO understands what this enable community freedom will deliver as a value, then I'm good. It's not like it's just that we need to find that answer, and we don't want every contributor to be speaking a different value that we will retrieve when we talk about this enable community freedom. That's the only thing that I have.
Go ahead, Augusto.
Hola, yes. Yeah, I just wanted to say that we shall receive a report from Lateral regarding everything that happened on the retreat and hackathon. And we talk a lot. They do an assessment about how important was finding this purpose, right? And they talk about external and internal purpose. I think this, when we came to the definition of a purpose, of a vision, or actually this is more like a purpose that set us on a direction, and we try to work together on this line, right? Like what it does. Some of us will have a different understanding of us enable community freedom is, but we are all going to work toward the same directions closely, right? So this is the main idea. This is, I think, for me, the main need for DXgov is to have a clear direction, a clear path. And okay, now we want to go there. How do we go there? What resources do we need? How what are our objectives, right? What are we pursuing? So this is what we are pursuing, right? We want to enable communities to gain freedom. Okay, what type of freedom? Financial freedom, democratic freedom, freedom of speech. What is enabled? It is just build, it is document, it is educate. And what are communities? These just are a group of people. These are real group of people, physical, DAOs, multi-signatures, group of friends, governments, companies. So this is actually, all of us are going to have different understanding of what are we going to do. Okay, what enable and which communities do we want to work on which type of freedom. But this was the goal of the purpose, to have something that is very hard, very impossible to reach, and it will be always there. So we will always have a North Star, right? That we can walk into that direction. So I think that was very important, and I like that it leaves room for how do we interpret it, right? How do we became closer to that purpose, to that goal? How do we make more communities? How do we increase the freedom on communities? I mean, not just okay, now you're free. Like increase the freedom, or okay, now let's say this community or this group of people have been using this platform to communicate or to as a forum. Okay, you can use this that is censorship resistant, or you can use this application to make decisions that is censorship resistant, is under your control, and you can use this decentralized exchange that is designed to work with the tool that we shall describe you. So I think it was the best thing that we got from the retreat. Yeah, something that is very important for us to agree on. And we should talk more about this, I think maybe next week after we share the lateral report. It is like, I think like 10 pages report where they describe everything that happened, conclusions, feedback, and analysis of our organization. And they give us some recommendations on things that we should continue working on. So once we share this information, I think we can have a better discussion around all this.
Cool. I think it's a pretty good place to end, unless there's other, I don't know, maybe we got a couple other things here to chat about, but anything else on?
Not restructuring focus, but I'm probably going to defer tomorrow's community call relaunch to next week instead. Not sure if I'm up to doing much of anything tomorrow, to be honest.
Well, hopefully you can find time to play with your cat. I think it sounds like
it is begging to be played with.
Cool. Just a couple like things to check out if you're interesting or worth checking out. Yeah, there's a DXD token working group meeting tomorrow. It's 2 hours earlier than this call. So I don't want to do the UTC time of that, but it's at 10 a.m. Eastern New York time. But that will be interesting, and definitely please do attend. And then there are a couple different Columbia reflection posts here. I think it's Sky. I believe this is Wayne, and then Keenan right here. And then also kind of an interesting from the DX referral reward for Violet, some interesting things in terms of recruiting and how that has kind of played out over the last couple months. So yeah, that's also worth checking out. There's a lot of things in the forum worth checking out these days, I feel like. So cool. Anything else before we depart?
Yeah. Davi. So Davi is in a state where it can be used, and it's got stuff on Gnosis Chain, Mainnet, Gorley, but we don't have many people using it. And if you actually use it, you'll see there's lots of things that are missing or things that might be confusing, and we actually need massive amounts of feedback. So we actually need everyone here, well, DXDAO contributors, but then also DXDAO community members. Maybe we can come up with some DAOs that can get more people involved, a wider audience. And there's things like quorums and all these settings that are new to experiences of governance. And we actually need a lot of people internally using it to see how it works and what it can be done. And squads can, instead of using multi-sigs, can start using guilds. And then we have some new guilds that can start doing things. And some will be with 10 people, some will be 5 people, some will be with 20 or more people. But without that, we basically, Davi is not going to get into a place where we can even show it to non-DXDAO people to have them use it. We need some examples of communities and people using it internally and building some usage and record and feedback and everything in order to then bring it to other communities. And so Ross maybe will, and a few of us might be leading this, but we're going to be asking people to join some of these DAOs or these guilds. And then we actually need people ideally using it on a pretty regular basis, like the same way we used to do with DXvote, which discovered a lot of stuff for us. But Davi needs to be massively used internally in order to get it to a point where we can even show it to people outside. And so it's not publicly released yet, but everyone here can use it. Ross, you can share the link and stuff. And then we actually need to come up with some real use cases for it. And one idea is already like the bounty payouts from the hackathon will be paid out of a guild and stuff. But we actually need to start using it. Otherwise, it's not going to get better, basically. And it's really important.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sky. Hopefully I think tomorrow we'll have some communication going out about the public beta. Just important that you all participate, and we'll find some cool stuff to do with it as well. Obviously, up until now, it hasn't had any use, but now there is actual use and like fun stuff we can do with it.
Cool. Yeah, and go ahead, Scott.
All right, Ross. Yeah, a bunch of us had given some feedback in the past that was consolidated into, I think, a Notion an organized Notion, which lets the Davi team take that feedback and work on those things and issue issues on GitHub, I guess. And so, people can just come up with their own feedback, record it somewhere, and share it in a doc. I guess once we could have a place that's very easy to report.
I'm going to write up some documentation of how you can share feedback. If it's larger feature stuff, we're using Canny, which is a solution for this that does it all for us and is really good for tracking. If it's like just a bunch of stuff or like general feedback, we'll also have a place for that in the Notion. That'll be detailed in tomorrow's post.
Awesome.
Cool. I was just going to say, not just Davi, but in general, I'm like kind of excited to see about other DAOs out there now. I feel like we kind of maybe learn a little bit, but Davi is like a great opportunity for that to just, be a little bit more active in other ones and see how they function. Cool. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Sorry, going over a little bit over, and we will see you next week.
Ciao.
Thanks.